Hi, everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President and Executive Writing Coach at Defend, Publish, and Lead. Welcome to episode 184, Dream Academic Year. I rarely plan far enough ahead to really envision what I want my next academic year to look like. I know a lot of other people do, and despite all the planning and project management that I like to talk about on here, I'm not really great at sort of envisioning what do I want to have next year feel like, for lack of a better word. I might know, oh, I want to write these articles, or I want to publish this book, or I want to teach this class, or change, maybe change a project that I'm doing in a class. I might know all of that, but I really started thinking about more, especially after coming back from a sabbatical. I think that's such an excellent time to think through what, now that I'm back, or I'm not back yet, but when at the time that I will need this information, I'll be back. What do I really want my next year to look like? What do I want it to feel like? And of course, again, some academic decision making goes into that. So what I wanted to do was just share with you a quick list I made for myself so I don't forget some things that I want to have happen while it's still time to do something about it. So at the time that this episode will come out, it will be in July. My academic year starts kind of mid to late August. So I have a little bit of time at the time that this episode is being released, where I can actually enact some strategies to make sure that I'm trying to make my year look more like my dream academic year than, maybe just kind of haphazardly going about it and not really thinking through what I want to do. So let me just share a note that I put for myself in Penzu. It was just a great catch-all for me to kind of see lists about this. I've never actually made one of these lists before, so I think it's really kind of cool because I just started thinking about like what are some practices I really wish I had in place. And I've got some, kind of lazy teaching habits. I've got some lazy scholarship habits. Everybody's got some things that, maybe they keep doing over and over because, you're getting by, you're doing what you're supposed to do, but maybe you could do some better things. So one of the things that I wanted to focus on, and I knew kind of going into my sabbatical that it's really time to do some of these things, but I want to turn new attention to my teaching again. I've, said it on the podcast. I know sometimes people are like, oh no, why did you say that on a podcast? But I think a lot of faculty members are either, aligned. They really like doing the scholarship part of the position. They really like doing the service, or they like doing the teaching. It's not that people aren't doing all three. Well, not all of us, but most of us are doing all three. But for me, it really is helpful to kind of think through. My natural preference is always for the scholarship and the research. It always has been. That was one of the reasons I went into academia. I really like doing that portion. And it's not that I don't like doing teaching or I don't like doing administration or some of the other things, but given the chance, if I had a day at work to do something, I would always pick the scholarship over, prepping for a class, whereas some people love prepping for a class. Other people are totally into whatever their service project is that they're doing and they want to do that. Or somebody might really like doing their administration. They get a big charge out of going to a lot of meetings and interacting with people all day. That would not be my preference, but that's, that's what I think maybe a lot of us lean towards one or the other. So for me, I knew I really wanted to turn my attention to teaching again. I have done this before. I would say every 5 years, I kind of try to lean in harder on teaching just naturally because, we can get stale. We can be doing the same kinds of things. And so for me, I just made 3 sort of loose, we'll call them dreams. I don't even want to call them goals yet because I haven't really articulated what are the specifics. But I know one of the things that I would like to do is I teach an introductory graduate class for our master's program that I created and that I direct. And I love that class, and I have some really good assignments. They've been, really, really great for working with students and getting them acclimated to the discipline of writing studies, which is where I am. But one thing I have not done with this class is to really prep the class for the whole 16 weeks. It's not that I don't have a syllabus. Of course I do. I have assignments. I know what they look like. But what I mean by that is that I haven't really thought about where I want them to be at the end of the class. I know what the assignments are, but I have not really articulated to myself what what are they supposed to have once they leave this class? I know it's an introduction to the discipline, it's a survey course. I know those kinds of like intelligent answers, but for me, I want to get to something a little bit more deeper. And so I did hear somebody talk about this on another podcast. I wish I could remember who to give credit for it. And I know that there's been a lot about back-end design and other disciplines like information sciences and that. But I really am going to think about when I put my syllabus together, where I want the students to be at the end of the semester, and what would the last day of class look like. So this is something I've been thinking about for a long time, this whole idea about thinking about the last day of class, since we put a lot of emphasis on the first day and the beginning of the semester. But I suspect a lot of us, by the time we get to week 15 or 16, we're just coasting to the end, and whatever happens, happens. I'm really trying to think about this in a different way. So how that's going to look, I don't know. I might do a special series on teaching at some point. I'm not sure, because I know that's not really maybe the point of our particular podcast here about writing and productivity, but that particular goal has been one that I've been thinking about. Another thing I know I want to do is I am very lucky to have a small upper level class. I do have these from time to time, but this particular one, I am teaching a topics with them, and we are so wonderfully lucky to have one of those cool maker spaces in our library where students can make all kinds of things. And so I know that my topic for that particular class will focus on multimodal rhetoric or persuasion in multiple modes. But I want to make sure that I've actually set up time for us to work in the maker space. But that also means I have to go down there and go, look, what can we make in here? Like, I don't want to just put those dates on the calendar and then not really have some idea of some things that people could make. Maybe I will say, well, I'd really like something to make a 3D object that communicates X or something like that. So I need to figure out when I want them to go in there, because of course it would be how much time would it take for them to complete something, and what can they make? So that's a little research on my part. I tend not to be very proactive with my teaching. I tend to kind of do it all in August and then we roll. But this time around, I really want to think about what would be really cool that we could make in here while I'm thinking about it in July. And then the last one, I am teaching some sections of first year writing. I teach them kind of on a rotation. I don't do it every year. But one thing that I do feel like I'm pretty okay at is having students do some writing in class. But I haven't done it in a way that it was very structured. And the more that I work with clients and see, for example, that some of the clients that work with us, they do what I call live writing, where they schedule a Zoom call with the writing coach and they actually produce text on a screen with the coach there to kind of help, comment, problem solve, that sort of thing. I know one of the things that happens in those live writing sessions is sometimes the coach will say, okay, I want everybody to try to do, or to the client, they'll say, I want you to try to do X, Y, Z. Write this paragraph that explains the connection between theory A and theory B, or something like that. So more of like a guided writing situation. I know for me, just having students having quiet writing time doesn't really produce any great benefits. And so I really want to experiment more with guided writing. So on my Penzu note, I'm actually, if you're watching it on YouTube, you can see me live editing there, but I want to do more of like a guided writing thing where students aren't sitting there wondering what to do with their computers. So that would be another teaching goal. Just some other ones. For administration, I've got a lot of things. I just put them on my list. Nobody needs to hear about them on a podcast, but I have an administrative role where I prepare faculty for tenure and promotion. We have a lot of different pieces going with that right now that need to be just figured out. So I have a little list about that. I also run our faculty writing group, and I also run our second year faculty program, and that focuses on scholarship and service. So I've just got a lot of administrative tasks for that, but I tend to wait until August to set some of that stuff up. But then what I have come to find is, I know I mentioned this in the last episode last week on university service, because I am late to the game with scheduling my activities. I have a really hard time getting people together because their calendars are already filled up with everybody else's stuff. So another dream for me would be to have a little bit more control over some of my meetings where I can get more of the people I need to talk to there. And when I wait too long to schedule them, then I kind of decrease my chances. So a dream academic year for me would also include just being a little bit more on top of the administration in the summer. For writing, I'll talk about this definitely when I talk about fall, but I know from 2 episodes ago when I talked about, or I guess that would be 3 episodes ago when I talked about working through kind of adjusting when an old project comes back. I knew I had 2 projects, maybe 3 that might go to the fall. So just because I know that they're coming, something that I know that I want to have happen in this academic year for a writing goal would be this project management book that I'm working on. I know the proposal is something I wanted to work on in the summer, and I mentioned in one of our previous episodes how that's going to probably get bumped because I had an old book project come back. But I know that that's going to be the priority for a dream academic year, so I listed it. Also, I've got a long-term research project doing faculty interviews where they give narratives about their writing process. I know one thing that has to go in any kind of a dream academic year for me is to think through, well, I want to make sure that I have the interview protocol done. I want to make sure I have institutional research permission to execute it, and I want to send that out. Like during that academic year, I know I want to get that out. What happens from there, I don't know, but I know that any dream year would have to include that. And then a last thing, I know I mentioned this, I can't remember which episode, but I had to move offices and basically consolidate 2 office spaces into one space. So this was not supposed to be on my radar, but in my dream academic year, I have a little note at the bottom just saying, be moved and have your office cleaned up. So what that means, I don't know. I'm not super neat, so it's got to be something that people can actually walk around in. I've got a funny episode about cleaning up my office for the summer, and then I think I might have recorded that before the pandemic hit, and that really didn't happen because of that. So one thing that I would encourage you to do, since this episode is coming out in July, is maybe to think through what are some things would be part of your dream academic year. I made some around, teaching, administration, scholarship, but maybe yours are about other things. I just worked with a client who is an academic parent, and I know in his case, single dad, has custody of his children. He does a lot of running around. And I know for him, he really wants to have kind of a better grip on where everybody has to be. When does he need help with, I think he has a niece or a nephew or something that helps him out with some of his children, but he wants to make sure that he's got that kind of figured out, like the logistics piece worked out. So I know for him, that was a piece that was really important. We also do a lot with academic mothers, and I was working with a small group of them that are part of our research group at an institution. And with that group, all of them talked about the idea of wanting to be able to focus on scholarship and not be thinking about parenting tasks or household tasks and stuff like that all in the back of their heads. So for them, for a dream academic year, they kind of talked about having this very focused writing time. And maybe it was fewer hours than they wanted, but they were going to do everything in their power to make sure that they weren't, say, on duty for parenting responsibilities. So it could be something like that. It could be that your writing location is really stale and you want to move it for your dream academic year. I know I've heard all kinds of resolutions for the academic year and new things. I had one client that really talked about how they're going to dress up every day to come to work. They're back in their institution was on a hybrid situation for quite a long time where a lot of faculty weren't on campus very much, but now they are going back to fully in person from being on Zoom. And I know in this case, this person was like, I haven't dressed up for work in 3 years. And so they decided to kind of make a point of that, like make it fun to go to work by being kind of ready and really engaged, and that they're very lucky that they have the position that they have. So I think that's a great dream academic year goal. I do another group that I'm working with right now. This was not kind of our part of our discussion, but really relevant to this podcast today. But this was a group of doctoral students all becoming new faculty, and they all talked about how they want to really make sure that they're prioritizing, health during their first year as new faculty. And we kind of talked about some ways to set goals for that just on a break. So there's lots of different ways to do it, but I encourage you to make your own kind of dream list. It might just have one thing on it, it might have a couple of different things, but if you could kind of imagine what an ideal year would look like, what would be the best way that that could move forward? And then finally, I mentioned last week that I wanted to kind of walk through resources that are available for the Textbook and Academic Authors Association. So if you're not watching this on YouTube, you can actually see me, or if you are watching it, you can actually see me click over. But last week I talked about a lot of the resources underneath the Get Informed section. So if you join Textbook and Academic Authors Association and you click resources, there are these 5 different areas. Every week I'm just going to talk about the different area and what are the benefits you get from joining. The second one the one that I want to focus on this week is called Get Connected. And what is in this particular area that is really, really helpful? There's a lot of different things, but one thing that I have not used a whole lot, but I know I want to use more, is that there is a whole directory of members that belong to the Textbook and Academic Authors Association. And so you're able to find people that are focusing on their scholarly writing and shared interests. And I know for me, one thing that was really great is I looked in there and I could see all the people kind of in my region. So there's like I said, member directory. If I just clicked on it, I could see all the people that were in my region. They were all members of TAA. And so for me, one of the things I thought about was, this would be really great to get people together. If I wanted to, I could kind of reach out to just those people and say, hey, we're all in the same time zone. We're all within an hour or 2 hours of each other. Would we maybe want to have like a semester writing retreat one day? We might want to meet on one campus all together and do our writing. So member directory is really great for that. All kinds of other things that are helpful are listed in here. There is something called a conversation circle, which I've talked about probably many episodes ago. I could not tell you which one. But one of the things I really like about this is that every month they have a conversation circle on a topic that is relevant to scholarly writing. So whether you're doing a textbook, whether you're doing a journal article, whether you're doing a monograph, Textbook and Academic Authors Association hosts these conversation circles. So it says they're 1 to 2 p.m. on Eastern time on the last Wednesday of the month. So this would be another resource, and there's plenty of other things here, but that would be another benefit to joining Textbook and Academic Authors Association. So I hope these resources help this week, and happy writing.